We're Ashley and Grayson, otherwise known as Our Full-Time Adventure. We've been traveling full-time for about 3 years, and we just got back from the most epic road trip through Alaska. We were there for 2 months, and we're super excited to share some of our favorite things that we did while we were there. The trip was honestly a dream, and we're so glad that we made the drive.
And Alaska is the United States' largest state. It's twice the size of Texas, and it's split up into 5 regions. And we explored 3 of those regions. We feel like the other 2, you need a boat or a plane. We don't feel that way. It's actually pretty true because they're very remote, and so we'll have to explore them next time because it was a little bit pricey for us this time around.
Through the months of July through September, we drove over 2,500 miles and we explored the interior, south central, and southeast regions of Alaska.
As mentioned, Alaska is a huge state full of so much adventure, and so we hope sharing some of our favorites will help you plan your dream trip to Alaska or the trip you've always wanted to take. And we've had some time to kind of think about our trip and sit down and talk about what we loved about the trip, and there's so much we love, so this is really hard to narrow down. We made a few categories of top 3 of this or top 3 of that, and we're so excited to share, and we're going to start off with our top 3 favorite hikes that we did while in Alaska.
The top 3 hikes that we agreed upon, because we did have differing views in terms of some of the hikes, but these were our top 3 together, and that is Lion's Head.
Before we get started, in no order.
Order.
They're all amazing.
All good. Lion's Head, Portage Pass, and Mount Alyeska. And we do have a bonus one in there, Reed Lakes, but we didn't have the best weather when we did it, and we think that if the weather was great, it probably would be number 1.
And that would be in order. And so these weren't chosen in a specific order because we loved every single one of them for different reasons. And I guess we'll start with Mount Alyeska real quick. This hike is so cool. It's in Girdwood, Alaska, and you hike up what would be like the ski slopes in the winter. So instead of taking the gondola up, you can hike up. It's a really steep hike, and it's a great workout. And we had beautiful weather for this hike. And in the middle of it, there was like a snow patch, and it was July, and we were like, what the? Snow in July? But it was so cool, and at the top, the views were amazing. But what's kind of funny is you hike up, and then there are a lot of people who do take the gondola. And so, like, you know, you're covered in sweat. You're like, oh, I earned this. And then you have other people that are just, you know.
In dresses.
Yeah, in dresses and heels. And you're like, oh, okay. And so what's really cool about this is you do get a free gondola ride down if you hike up. But if you don't hike up, it's pretty pricey. Not only was it a beautiful hike and a nice workout up, but there was no way we were spending $50 to ride the gondola up and then down as well. We just hiked up and got the free ride down.
Yeah, and the views at the top were absolutely amazing. So it was just a beautiful hike overall.
And then when it comes to our second hike, again in no order, Portage Pass. I'll let Ashley talk about this one. She really enjoyed it, and this was like one of the first ones she named, so I'll let her.
Portage Pass was such a fun hike. It's in Whittier, and Whittier is so cute, and you get to go through this huge tunnel, so just getting there in itself is super fun. But the hike itself is very well maintained, and there's beautiful views almost the whole entire time. You can see the glacier as you're walking to it. You can see it from above. Once you get down, you can see it from a little bit lower, and then at the end of the hike, you get to a gorgeous lake where you can see the glacier, and honestly, it was just so peaceful. Even though there were other people doing the hike with us, once we got there, people kind of came and went often, so we did have some time when it was just us, and we got to just check it out and explore for ourselves. And honestly, it was just such a beautiful view and a great hike overall.
And so that was the beginning part was definitely a workout.
Yeah.
Because it's rocks and it's kind of loose. So you're hiking uphill on loose, gravelly rock. So that's got to be like one of my least favorite terrains is sand and loose gravel rock. And so doing it uphill to the pass was kind of strenuous and not really too hard, but it was just kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But when you got to the pass and you saw the glacier, it was all worth it. And that was kind of similar to our third hike that we have on here, which is Lion's Head. Very similar. You're hiking up this like mound thing that's super muddy. No real trail. But the top, when you get there, you can see the Matanuska Glacier. And it's just a beautiful view. We had the entire trail to ourselves. And at the beginning of the trail, there were raspberries. So we absolutely loved that. And then finding the trail wasn't too hard because our dogs came with us. And they just
led the way.
Chose the trail for us. And when you got up there, it was kind of windy. And this is a really cool hike because when you're at the top, you can see the Talkeetna Mountain Range, the Chugach Mountain Range, and the Matanuska Glacier. And so that's really cool to actually hike or get to the glacier. There's like a tour, and we weren't doing that when we saw that there was the other option to hike Lion's Head. We definitely chose that because we're all about getting out and getting moving and just using our bodies to get the cool spots. So definitely an awesome hike. And then our last one is Reed Lakes. And so this would have been number 1, like Ashley said, if we had great weather. But I had a great time. I'll let Ashley talk about, our experience on Reed Lakes.
Yeah, no, I had a great time too. He's saying it as if I didn't. It just was super muddy, and hiking in the mud is really not my thing. I don't love it, especially because we did have our dogs with us, and I just don't want them to slip or get hurt, or us to get hurt or anything either.
We were slipping and they were fine.
Yeah, we were slipping and they were fine, of course. But the trail was so beautiful, and the views the entire time are gorgeous. So it's almost like, yes, the lakes are beautiful, but the whole entire hike, you're looking around at the mountains, and it's just so stunning. So we absolutely loved that hike. And then getting to the first lake was so beautiful. A lot of people stop there and don't go to the second one, but we're like, we're going to go to the second one, of course. We're just going to go up there and do it. And the second lake was absolutely stunning too. But when we got there, it was raining so hard that unfortunately we didn't have any time to enjoy it. And that's why it doesn't really make our top 3 cut, but we know that it would if the weather was better.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting hike. We left. It was supposed to be a beautiful day. Got out there. It was a little bit muddy, which was fine, but from the first lake to the second lake, it's kind of all uphill. It's not far. It's just all uphill. Mm-hmm. And that hill coming down was slick.
Slick.
She ended up on her booty. I ended up on my booty. And the dogs just ended up covered, but they had a great time.
Yeah.
We wish we had better weather to enjoy it more, but of course we've seen pictures of what it looks like in beautiful weather. And I think it would have been our number 1. So with those 3 hikes and our bonus, that leads us to our next category, which is our top 3 favorite cities. And this was a little easier for us to narrow down because there are some cities that just kind of felt right and just felt so Alaskan. Like, we just loved it.
Our first city that we absolutely loved is Valdez, and it's kind of funny because that's our last city, and I think if we would have gone sooner, we probably would have stayed longer, but unfortunately we only had a couple of days in that area. But Valdez as a whole is just such a vibe. Like, it's just so beautiful. Everywhere you look, you can literally see glaciers around in the mountains. And then there isn't much hiking, so that was our one downfall, I guess, to it. But as you're driving into Valdez, you drive by waterfalls, and it's just a very scenic drive. And then once you actually get to Valdez, there's good food. It's so pretty. The harbor's beautiful. Like, there was just so much to see and do in that area, and we just wish we had more time there because that was definitely one of our favorite cities we visited.
Yeah, and if you're there during salmon season, the Solomon Gulch Hatchery has not only all the salmon running in, so we got to see all that, but then we saw a sea lion eating them. The wildlife was just so awesome in Valdez because we did travel in Alaska for 2 months, and we saw a little bit of wildlife. We saw a decent amount, but towards the end we didn't see much, and we're like, they don't exist here. There's no wildlife here.
We need more.
But we saw black bears. We saw the sea lion. We saw so many seagulls, birds. Just, it was awesome. We had such a great time there. And so our second city that we absolutely loved isn't really a city. It's more of a town, and it's hardly even a town. And that's Hope, Alaska. This is where we went fishing for pink salmon. My first experience fishing for salmon in Alaska, which is a must-do. Even if you don't like fishing, it's a really cool thing. I like fishing, so it was even cooler for me. But this town is so small, has like a little small town vibe because there's literally not much there. There's a lot of history to the town for when it comes to gold mining and so on and so forth, but the views were absolutely beautiful. Such a cute town. It's a little bit out of the way. Definitely recommend that you visit when you're there.
Worth it.
100% worth it. And it was pretty popular because we did go during salmon season. So the pink salmons were running in, and yeah, it was a fun town.
And the third city is Anchorage. I'm sure a lot of people would put Anchorage on their list. There's just a lot to see and do there since it is such a big city, the biggest city in Alaska. There is nature all around, but there's also food and shopping, and you know, when you need to go and get stuff done, you can get anything done there. So we did spend a little bit of time in Anchorage. Here and there we kind of would pop in, do what we need to do, leave, come back, do what we need to do. But it was really beautiful, and we loved Kincaid Park in Anchorage. We honestly didn't get to explore too much. We were planning on it, and then we ran into one moose, and then we ran into 2 moose, and so we weren't going to get out of the car and do the trails that we were going to do when we saw moose. But I think that's why we loved it so much, because we were just driving. It was like, oh hey, there's a moose on the trail that we were going to go on, and then we left the trail, and then it was like, oh hey, there's a moose on the side of the road. So it was just really cool, and I think overall Anchorage just has a lot to do and see. And one of the places that we loved eating there was Moose's Tooth, and it's actually not in a video, but we'll put some pictures because it was absolutely delicious. And if you do go to Anchorage, you need to go there. The wait times are absolutely outrageous, but it was totally worth it.
So Moose's Tooth is actually the highest grossing pizza restaurant in the United States, and you wouldn't think you'd be finding it in Alaska.
So crazy.
But it definitely lives up to the hype. And Chugach State Park is right around the corner. Yes. So much hiking, unreal amount of hiking. We literally made a video specifically about Chugach, and we could have spent way more days there. But of course, your time in Alaska is kind of limited during the summer. We tried reindeer hot dogs in Anchorage. That was kind of interesting. There's so much to do there. And fun fact about Kincaid Park, it's actually the highest concentration of moose in that area of Alaska. And so when somebody told us that, we're like, in the city. There's no way.
Yeah.
And then we actually recommended to friends to go there, and they didn't believe us either, and they saw moose. And so it's just such an awesome city. I was going to say little city, but it's pretty big.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like a metropolitan down in the lower 48, but it has everything you need. You can do laundry, do all your stuff there, and we just had such a great time there, and it's amazing. We weren't expecting to like a big city, and we liked it.
And that brings us into our third category, which is our top favorite places that we ate.
We love eating.
What food was the best?
Love eating.
Yeah, the first place, and they're still in no order, but the first place that we're going to talk about is the Cookie Jar, and that was in Fairbanks, Alaska. It was so good. It started off as a little micro bakery, and they only had cookies and muffins and stuff like that, but over time it's evolved, and now it has breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And while we were there, we got cinnamon roll French toast.
Let me interrupt. Her favorite fact is that it serves breakfast all day long.
Yeah, it serves breakfast. I mean, how could that not be good? I love breakfast all the time. It's so good. But so the first thing that we got, or one of the things that we got, was cinnamon roll French toast, and it was literally so good. I mean,
they put that stuff on top?
Oh my gosh, they put whipped cream on top, they put
jam
berries
stuff
on top.
Oh my.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could just picture how good that would be. So that was the first thing that we got. And then we got a Philly cheesesteak. And you would think, like, that's kind of random, like, to get there. But the waiter recommended it, and we got it, and it was so good. We've literally been to Philadelphia and have had Philly cheesesteaks from Philadelphia. And this one somehow just topped it. The bread was so sweet. The filling was so good. The cheese was, like, oh, it's just so good. The salty and sweet combination was amazing. And then we finished off with a dessert. I don't remember what was in it. I just know it was good.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was at all.
We'll put a video up here. But it was really good.
Yeah.
And overall, that restaurant was like 12 out of 10. Like, it was so good, and we would recommend it to anyone that's going to Fairbanks.
She did recommend it to everyone we ran into at Fairbanks.
Everyone.
You have to go to the Cookie Jar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so worth it.
She's like, if you're going to Fairbanks for anything, it's the Cookie Jar.
Yeah, seriously.
But that leads us to our second one, and this, in my opinion, might have been my actual favorite in all of Alaska, which was Nat Shack. This was located in Valdez, Alaska. It's a cute little food truck. It's got black with pink lettering. It's so awesome. They actually are in like a little, not a graveyard, what do you call that? They're actually in like a little like, they're like in a little assembly of like different places like you can eat.
Yeah.
Probably like the only places you can eat in that town that's not a real restaurant.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, this place has the most seating, has the biggest spot, so you know it's good. When we were there, we got there was one person, and as we were sitting there, it got packed. Food is amazing. They have CalMex foods, they have tacos, they have burritos, they have some stuff like that, but the one thing we recommend are the crunch wraps. It's one of those things that when you go to Nat Shack, this is what you're getting. You don't go and get something else. You go and get the crunch wrap. Everyone we talked to while we were there was like, oh, you guys got crunch wraps? Good decision. Only thing to get when you're there, we got a banh mi crunch wrap, which is a Vietnamese sandwich, but crunch wrap edition. So good. And then we also got the original or the classic or the traditional. Yeah. It was kind of like a beef burrito.
Knocked it out of the park.
Unreal. And then you have the views while you're sitting there and you're eating this delicious food.
Looking at the
glaciers and the mountains, and the chips and salsa was really good too. Everything here was great. The customer service was amazing. Overall, 20 out of 10 experience.
Still dreaming about it. We need to go back.
Definitely. And that leads us to our third one that we both absolutely loved. And it was pretty early in our Alaskan journey, and just is one of those things that kind of just still sits with us.
Yeah, so we loved the salmon spot. This was in Talkeetna, which is such a cute little city already. When we went, it was super crowded, so we didn't spend too much time. I don't know if it was a weekend or if there was something going on, or if it's usually just that busy, because it is really cute. But we were like, we know we want to go here. We were told that it's really good, so we ended up going. And the salmon spot serves salmon, and they make these little patties. You can watch them press it down with fresh salmon, and they hire everyone locally from Alaska, which is also really cool. A husband and wife started it, and the food was just absolutely amazing. I got a salmon salad, so it was like 3 little patties on a salad with some amazing dressing. It was something sweet. It was really good.
It's like soy sauce something.
Yeah, it was like soy sauce, but like sweet. It was really good. And then Grayson got a salmon burger.
Ooh.
And that was also really good.
So good.
So, and the prices also were very, very reasonable, which is like kind of surprising for salmon and for being in a popular little city. So overall, that spot was really good, and the views were also really pretty, but it was not the best day. Usually on great days, you can see Denali, because Talkeetna is actually the gateway to Denali, but it wasn't a great day, so we couldn't see that. But I know on a beautiful day that the views would have been amazing while we were eating our delicious salmon.
So if you've been to Alaska and you've been to Talkeetna, we might get a little bit of hate that we didn't go to the spinach bread place.
It was closed.
It was closed. We tried going. It was closed. It was a Tuesday, which is when they're closed.
Oh,
and every
Tuesday.
person after that we talked to about the salmon spot or Talkeetna was like, you didn't go to the spinach bread place? You didn't go there? Shame on you. I'm like, we're not going back. That's a little far.
At some point.
But at some point we'll go back and try it because we've seen pictures, we've read reviews, and we've talked to people we know personally, and we know it's a spot we missed out on. And probably would be on our list even though we haven't been there.
Yeah. And now we're going to talk about our favorite drives, and we'll start off with the Richardson Highway.
So this highway takes you from Glen Allen, which is the Glen Highway, and then the Richardson Highway kind of have like a T. And so you take the Richardson Highway south. This highway goes from Glen Allen to Valdez. Beautiful highway. It takes you through some amazing scenery past Wrangell St. Elias National Park, and then it takes you over Thompson Pass, which is the
Beautiful.
snowiest pass in Alaska. And then it takes you through Keystone Canyon, which is what they call Little Switzerland. It's got these beautiful mountains covered in lush greenery, waterfalls. It's just so beautiful. And then, of course, you end up in Valdez, Alaska, which, again, we talked about. It's kind of our favorite little town in Alaska. And it's just such an awesome drive. I don't remember the length of it, but it's one of those drives that you'll probably remember forever.
And the next drive that we love was Sterling Highway.
So this highway starts with the Seward Highway, kind of goes down the Seward. Then you have the Sterling Highway that takes you from like Cooper's Landing all the way down to Homer. And not only do you have beautiful river views the entire time of the Russian and then the Kenai, it takes you through Soldotna, it takes you to Kenai, it takes you to Homer, takes you to a lot of places, and there's so much scenery the entire time. And we had such a good time and enjoyed the drive thoroughly.
Almost everywhere you drive in Alaska is so beautiful, but our last one that really stuck out to us is the Seward Highway.
And so the Seward Highway, it takes you from Anchorage, and then you can go south, because that's the way it goes. It takes you to Girdwood, takes you to that little Alyeska area. Then it takes you to like the Whittier area where you would take the tunnel, goes around the Turnagain Arm and takes you down to Seward and meets up with the Sterling Highway. But the entire time, it's so gorgeous. There are mountains, there's the Turnagain Arm, there is so much to see. There are pull-offs so you can watch the boar tide. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love this highway. We actually camped along it, I think 1 or 2 nights.
Yeah, a couple days.
Beautiful. Such a great time. It was a little foggy, a little moody, which is like all of Alaska, but love this drive so much. But that leads us to where we stayed. This is our last category. We have 3 of our favorite campsites, plus an extra. We did spend a lot of nights at Cabela's or in parking lots because that's just kind of the reality of Alaska. We didn't think that was going to be what it was. But we're going to talk about our favorite sites that we did get to that weren't Cabela's and weren't parking lots.
The first campsite that we loved was in Valdez, which is no surprise because we love Valdez so much. It wasn't that the campsite was anything special. Honestly, it was just street parking. We were on the side of the road, but it was us and a bunch of other campers and some beautiful mountain views and some beautiful water to look at. And in the morning, we were woken up by some seagulls. They were just going back and forth, back and forth. It was right near the hatchery, so it was really conveniently located to where we were planning on going in the morning. And overall, it was just very beautiful and peaceful and quiet other than the birds. But the birds, I feel like, were what made it so special.
And so we had a similar experience with the birds over on the Homer Spit. There's a secret little boondocking spot that we found that we're not really sure if you're allowed to stay there, but we stayed there a decent amount of time. And so we call it the Homer Spot on the Spit. And it's kind of just like not even on the Spit, it's a little bit off of it, but the seagulls were present, the views were insane. You can see the Kachemak Bay State Park across, so the mountains are just huge and just awesome to look at. And it was
beautiful.
Fairly quiet besides the seagulls. They were fairly loud, and it was 24 hours a day.
Wah, 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 wah,
Yeah, all the time.
But it was also right on the harbor, so it was so fun just watching the boats go in and out, going to Kachemak Bay or wherever else they were going, and just being able to see all the boats from above was really cool too. So that spot honestly was so nice, and we really loved it.
And there were sea otters. That was cool. They would like sit and like do their thing on like their back, like kind of like rubbing their head or whatever.
So cute.
Awesome spot. But with that said, our next spot was a spot that was near Whittier. It was on the way there. We weren't through the tunnel yet. And it was very popular as well. Every boondocking spot or spot in general is so packed during the summer. Mm-hmm. And so we pulled up, there were 3 other campers. And we kind of got the last spot. And people were going in and out all night trying to park there as well. You parked in kind of like a little pull-out parking lot that just had a beautiful blue lake that we actually hopped in one of our videos. And wow, the water was cold. We weren't expecting it to be as cold as it was. Freezing.
It's freezing.
And the views were really, really, really beautiful. And it was pretty quiet despite the amount of people that were there. I think we stayed there one night. And we had just such a good time. Some of these boondocking spots you get to are pretty packed, like it was a campground, and it's cool to just be able to pull up and not have to pay. But you'd expect with the views that on some of these you'd have to pay, and we didn't pay at all.
Yeah, it was really a nice spot. And the last one is kind of a bonus one because we did not park there in our RV. We actually backpacked in Ketchimek Bay State Park, and we slept on Gruink Lake. And oh my goodness, it was so beautiful. It was our first backpacking trip, so it was even more exciting. You had to take a little boat to get out there on a little taxi, and it was so cool. We had it all to ourselves. We saw other people backpacking towards the end, and so we were like, oh, we're probably not going to be alone. But we got there, we set up, then it was 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. No one else came, and it was just us, and it was such a cool experience being able to fall asleep outside in a tent. Like, I've tent camped growing up.
Did we fall asleep though?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely not 10 out of 10 sleep, but the views were like 20 out of 10. So honestly, it made up for it. But it was kind of interesting because in the summer in Alaska, it stays bright so much longer. And at this point, I think the sun was setting around like 11, 12 or so, and so it was still kind of bright out.
Yeah, 2 hours like finally falling asleep, and the light was like just gone. So like it was a little difficult to fall asleep in a tent during the summer, but we got it done.
Yeah, and when we woke up and unzippered the tent, and all of a sudden it's like, the lake with the glacier and no one being there, the sunrise. It was so beautiful. So if you do end up going to Alaska and you want to try backpacking, it is a pretty easy trip. Like, it wasn't too long to get there. We did have it to ourselves in the middle of summer, so I'm going to assume that you probably could have the same luck. And yeah, it was really beautiful.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 recommend Ketchimek Bay State Park, and if you can't backpack it,
at least go hike it, yeah.
It was awesome. And we just really hope sharing our favorites with you help you plan your trip, because when we were looking, there's so much online to see, and without seeing like video or pictures or actually experiencing it, it's kind of hard to see if you're going to like it as much. Yeah. And so we're just glad we did the things that we did, because we did plan for a very long time. And there's a lot more we did while we were in Alaska, of course. A lot of it made it into our Alaska series if you haven't watched that yet. Definitely go watch Exploring Alaska. We explored from Fairbanks all the way down to Homer, and then over to Valdez, and then top of the world highway. I think we did it all. We did not do the Dalton Highway this time around. We didn't do a lot of the flying experiences or the boat experiences because, like we mentioned in the beginning, it's a little pricey, and we're just not at that point yet where we felt we can do that.
Spend that money, yeah. And honestly, just talking about it is making me so excited again, just thinking about all the memories that we made while being there. So if you're contemplating going to Alaska, take this as your sign. You should definitely go, and we hope that you try out some of these things that we did and love Alaska as much as we did.
And if you're new around here, a lot of our videos are not guides like this. We want to make more guides going forward because we do explore a lot, but a lot of our videos are about our adventure, our full-time adventure. And so if you're new here, hit the subscribe button if you liked what you learned, because you can go back and watch our series, and then we have more series to come, and we're just so excited for you to be here. And we hope you liked it. So
yeah, and definitely make sure to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and comment below where you would go first. And if you've been to Alaska, comment your favorite spots. Did we miss anything? Is there anything else that we need to add to our list for next time? But we hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Until next time.